the light I had when I began as this young preacher evangelist, and the zeal I came on the scene with, without much light and knowledge to match the zeal. And I look at the shortcomings in those days, the mistakes, because I didn't have a mentor. I forced myself to be mentored and to get help, but I wasn't accepted. I was talking to Bishop Dark today, and I remember some of the things I had to go through and some of the people I went to see for help. I went to James McKeown, the founder of Church of Pentecost, when I came back from Bible school in Nigeria, and I wanted to be an evangelist at the Church of Pentecost. And they had had a lot of experience with people who left the church as an evangelist and didn't do right. And so he said that they are not interested in an evangelist. So he prayed for me and he let me go. So I went to Nigeria to see Archbishop Nicholas blessed memory, and I said, you know, Papa, I don't think that God called me to Ghana. And so can I come and work with your church? And he said, no, God called you to your people, go back to Ghana. So I came back to Ghana and I didn't know what to do. So I went to Reverend Agbozo, in those days, Enoch. Went to his all night meetings and talked to him to see if I can work with him. And he said, no, I don't believe God called you to my ministry. So seek God. So I went to Owuswe Friye, you know, and Owuswe Friye also, he wasn't running the church, it was a ministry, and it wasn't something that he could bring me into. So I went to Reverend Isaac Abebiu.
Wow.
Went to his office to see him. In those days, he had a radio ministry and all that, and it didn't work out. So I went to Tema to see one Reverend Mensa, the old man of Full Gospel Evangelistic Ministry. So he would, every now and then he would let me preach. And then one day he said, Nicholas, I think you should go to the secondary schools and evangelize the youth and tell your testimony, you know, and start something. So that was when I started going to the secondary schools, and that was when I met Bishop Dark. He was then in Achimota. He was in school in Achimota at that time. And Reverend Eastwood Anabadem, he was then in Presec and all that. So I started and I used what I had, and I was sincere. I was very sincere about what I had and what I was saying, you know, and had a lot of challenges. You know, I faced a lot of rejection and lots of betrayals, and a lot of people did not believe.
So at what point did you know that God was using you to begin what we now call the charismatic movement?
I remember I had an understanding without appreciating the understanding. So there is a saying I use every now and then when I'm dealing with very complex situations, that I understand that I don't understand. So I understood, but I did not understand the depths of what I thought I understood in those days. That God had called me to break grounds for a new move and something that was going to sweep across this nation, and it will go to the nations of the world. And I didn't know how me can be used to do something huge, big, across nations that will raise giants. And I believed, but my physical senses could not make sense of it.
So it wasn't ambition. It wasn't an ambition of yours to be used to do anything like that.
No. I didn't even want to start a church. I was against it. I was doing this revival every Saturday at the association school and at the student hostel where the Fallen Ministry is now. It was student hostel in those days, and a lot of African leaders were living on that campus then. That was where we started. And it was a Saturday afternoon, and people came from everywhere, you know, and it was working, and I loved it, and I was happy with it. Then one time I was there, and 2 prophets came from Israel with the principal of my Bible school, and then Archbishop Margaret Idahosa. And we had a great move of God. And then on that day, they prophesied, and they said, I have called you to go beyond what you are doing now. You start a church. And I said, me start a church? Forget it. Because I love coming to do my revival on Saturday, and then Sunday morning I went to Church of Pentecost. And it didn't give me pressure. I didn't have to cancel people. I didn't have to pray for anybody. I didn't have to bury anybody. No children, baptism, no counseling of people having marriage problem. I don't care whether you come to church, you don't come to church. Don't have to follow up anybody. You don't have to go to the prison. You don't have to bury anybody. You don't have to go to the hospital to pray for people. And I mean, I didn't want that. So when they said, and I know the voice of God, and the word was strong, and I'm telling you, it was a battle. I wrestled with me. I wrestled me that whole night. And the next morning, the Sunday morning, they stayed to preach for the Sunday service, and the place was literally empty. Nobody came. Because a lot of the people who came from their own churches. And they came for the miracles and the breakthroughs and the power and the anointing. They weren't interested to commit themselves to a church, to settle down and to be held accountable. No. And I just said to myself, you see, I'm minding my own business. This thing is working. You people have come here to mess me up.